Hello there. How are you? Sitting in my favorite park here, enjoying and soaking up the beautiful warm weather. Maybe there's some smoke here too. So, how to begin? So, lessons in directness, that's what I entitled this. And I'm finding it more and more often in interactions with people that are out of integrity or in fear or self-judgment or a whole bunch of things. The only way safely for me to get out of them is to be direct. So let me give you an example. So the universe sent me abundance in this most mysterious way. I was starting to run out of money, and it sent me another business owner, as a friend of mine, that needed help with some stuff. He was way behind on getting some projects done, and I have a very unique skill set as an engineer, as a problem solver, and in the energetic to be able to fit in very quickly and come up to speed in a very short period of time. So I made it a commitment to them to help him and to help him get more revenue coming in, etc. And I got to the point there's over $5,000 in billable time, which is money I sadly sorely need to be able to pay my bills, pay my rent, meet my commitments in the world. And I've had several direct conversations because he's got his own financial troubles and other things, but I needed to know that my time would be respected and that I could pay my bills based on what was going on. So he in general agreed, but I guess we didn't get to enough detail because I kept getting let down. He paid one of my invoices in two different payments, and that was always on Friday, and it was the 2 Fridays before last Friday. And then this Friday, even though there's another $4,000 hanging out there, no payment came. So I had an expectation that payment was going to come based on no real firm commitment about how things were, a lot of loose stuff that he could only pay on net 30 because that's how he got paid and all this kind of shit, which was him in his fear. But I committed to it and agreed, but it left me in this place where I wasn't sure I was going to have enough money to pay my rent this month. And so I've been forced to, I was so angry after 2 different times of sitting down and holding him in directness and asking for my needs to be met, but not in really deep detail on when the payment would be received. And the other one that's also frustrating is he used my services for 4 weeks straight, like almost, and made a commitment, said it was going to be about 30 hours a week on general. And now so last week, I didn't get any work. This week, we're already halfway through the week, and I didn't get any work again. And I'm like, okay, have I made the right choice? Blah, blah, blah. And all this stuff came up. Woke up in the last 2 nights, and I was very frustrated because I had no control in my life. I'd given it to this man because he was in trouble, and I was trying to be helpful, but it also took my safety away, which isn't something I should give away. So I've now had to write this really complete and direct email to call him on all this stuff and explain my situation and how it compares to his situation and how my safety and other stuff. Honestly, if he paid me out all the money that I needed, I'd be actually covered for the next 2 months, and then I wouldn't be this nervous system, frustrated or freaked out because I'd have enough money to cover the next 2 months. And I've earned that, but it hasn't been paid based on terms that I indirectly agreed to because it made him feel safe, but I gave away my safety. So, like, I am so tired of some of the lessons that I've had to learn, and I went through all the difficulty and the discomfort of having direct discussions with him, having a conversation about all this, but it's clear he didn't understand it in the same way that I stated it. So now I'm having to be critically clear. It's like, okay, my next invoice is payable based on net 30, by next week? Can I expect payment? Will I receive payment? I need that money to be able to pay my bills and meet the expectations I have. And I'm sure this is putting pressure on him, but he's the business owner. He's the one getting the business. He's the one that is asking for my time to be met. And I can't be flexible on that because I'm at the end of my money and all these things. So I have to have a direct conversation. I have to state what my needs are and take my power back and say, okay, I can't leave this open. Honestly, he's invested a whole bunch of time and effort in me training and other stuff, but I'm now wondering if I got to go find a job tomorrow because it's not going to pay me for 2 weeks minimum. And if I don't get this money from him, then I'll be in a financial problem. So it's kind of crazy. His fear is beating on my fear. And yes, we're coming together as a pair of like vibration, but the only way out of the fear is to stand up for myself. And he's going to have to be brutally honest. If he cannot pay me on a regular basis or whatever, I'm going to have to go find other work. And that will make me unavailable to do his work. But he can't have it both ways. He can't pay me in an unreliable fashion and expect me to show up tomorrow because I've made that commitment to him and I'm ready for it. But now he has no work and he's got to wait until the next one comes in, which is completely outside of his control. So I can't give him the commitment I made. The commitment's going to have to be, okay, based on me having enough money, and now I got to go and scramble because he can't meet paying me back for that $4,000, which I gladly gave, and probably cost him half the time that it would have been having another type of employee with less skills and less background. So I'm getting paid for my value and my worth and other things, so it makes my bills a little higher. But it also makes it so that I don't have to work so often and I don't have to, I love my free time and I want to have at least a week off on and off throughout a month because I need time to do my spiritual work. I need time to go deep, but this also created spiritual work in me in a different way and other things. So it's really, I'm sure my guides are just laughing and having a great time at how powerful I am and how I can deal with anything, but it's really disgusting feeling because I cannot rely on people's word. I have to have a very, a written contract sometimes to be able to get people to commit. And I'm seeing that with members of the feminine community. I'm sharing sacred sexuality knowledge for free with no obligation, etc. And then they don't like what they hear. And then they're coming back at me and making a story and gossiping and getting a whole bunch of women aligned around their trauma in a codependent bullshit. And then they're calling me out and saying, I'm doing something and I'm bad in the community and I don't belong here and all this kind of stuff. When I'm giving them awakening knowledge and they were called and they were sopping it up. And if you can't fucking handle the blue pill after you've, or the red pill, the red pill after you swallowed it, there we go, and you want to keep taking the blue pill after you've taken the red pill, I don't think that's possible. So then they get a lesson in a different way, and I'm tired of giving lessons to people in an indirect way where they're not owning their side. And I'm not speaking about this in the business relationship I'm talking about in just personal situations. I had my ex-girlfriend show up and she wants to be guided by me. And I said, well, only if you pay. And then the fuckery that happened after that was like fucking intense. She'd like go back on it and say, hey, I can give you $100 a month for the next 10 months or whatever, because I can't afford it or whatever. And it's like, no, this is, you fucked me. There's a huge imbalance and you want me to come back and give you information and help you some more when I would have given it freely. But no, there's a game, this little girl game that's inside of her. And I see it every time her little girl comes out. She gets in the slightest bit about fear or on money or whatever, and she will fuck everybody. And I'm not talking in the good way around her. She will twist and turn and hurt and harm and steal and rape and pillage. Literally, we actually agreed that some of the stuff she did to me was a rape. And she took sexuality from me under false pretenses and other things, saying she loved me and wanted the same things as me when it wasn't true. She was just fucking enjoying the feeling of being evolved and awakened, because she was taking my energy from me. And then when I finally grew up and figured it out and I stepped away and I said, I can't do this anymore, then she was mad and I'd taken something from her. Well, I was giving it freely because I thought that was what love was all about, but she was giving very little back, and I got screwed in the deal. And she had been raped in her past, and we talked about it, and she finally admitted that was the same predatory reasons that her rapist did to her. So there's karma for you. She turned into the rapist in a whole different way. But seeing this stuff where people are hurt and wounded and their bad behavior is okay based on the fact that they're wounded or they're in trauma or the community's not supporting them properly or the community's not holding them accountable. So I was called out by a bunch of women in my other community, and I'm kind of talking with the person that runs the community about coming back, and he's like, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be set up to keep everybody safe. And I got a real issue with that, because that's to keep women safe. Where's to keep men safe? Where's to keep a man safe from women talking about their trauma and speaking in a codependent group and twisting all the facts to align with their trauma and then projecting it back on a man without that man being able to respond? It's a very typical thing that women do when they get uncomfortable because of a man, and they turn everything that he did into some kind of attack. But it wasn't an attack. It was me sharing vulnerably and openly of my experiences and the stuff about sacred sexuality, and they saw their shadow in it, and they didn't like that. And it's, where the fuck do you get off doing that? And you can't talk about sex around me or whatever. Well, if you stand there and listen or lurk from the corner, which the main person did, because I don't even remember having a discussion with her about the stuff that she claims I revoked or did not ask for her consent and other things. She was on the other side of the room, sitting in a chair, listening intently, soaking it all up, and then she didn't like what she heard. I was in full consent with the woman that I was sharing it with, and that woman wasn't even part of the group that was complaining. It was all the young women, the ones that are in a big free fall of their trauma and their exes and their bullshit. But I got attacked by them in the community. And then I had men kind of dogpiling on top to say, oh, you can't be yourself in this community because you're harming other people. And that man actually apologized to me later for doing that, because we as men have to stick together. We can't have this over-feminized crap where women project everything on a man and make them responsible. It doesn't heal anything. It doesn't fix anything. It just makes you more fucking bitter. And then it pisses off the man and it destroys the whole synergy of love and light between people. And I've had this happen to me many times, and I've been told that I got to change and I got to fix myself and I got to do better and all this kind of stuff. And I go back and I've looked at this situation. I've talked to other people that were there, and none of the things they said were true, and validated by talking to other people, even though I knew that this was a pile of bullshit. But I've went through the forensic analysis now and talked to other people. Did you hear me violating consent? Did you hear me even talking to this person? No, I didn't. And then it's like, well, why the fuck is she complaining? Well, she resonated with a whole bunch of other girls that sat with me and then twisted the story to align with her trauma, which is very common. That's how the subconscious brain works. It will twist details to allow you to project it on someone else, so you don't have to be responsible. And that's your protector running. So I'm just saying, being in directness, and I did respond in directness to that situation, but basically the collective story and the Me Too came in, and I was just beat down by 5 different people stating a version of whatever was discussed without me present. And the story was set between all these people when a lot of it wasn't true. And I could not understand why they're saying, okay, you violated my consent and you did all this kind of stuff. Well, I didn't even have direct interactions with some of these people, so how could I? And the other people, I was constantly checking in saying, hey, does this resonate in your heart? It's a different version of consent, a lot softer and a lot whatever. And if you nod your head and you smile at me or whatever, that is consent. But if you say something or you just sit there dumb and mute or whatever, I'm only assuming that you want to continue. You have to be responsible for your fawn or flight or whatever access or whatever, I cannot be responsible for the fact that you're not participating in your own body or have left your body in the middle of a conversation. If I'm doing one-on-one, absolutely, I'll check in at every point. But if I've got 4 or 5 people in the room and we're all talking, I can't do an individualized check-in with every single person in the room. You got to be responsible for yourself. And yes, it's become acceptable that women are not responsible, and when they get in their trauma, their mind shuts off and they're being capable of being violated. Well, I didn't violate anybody. I just talked about stuff that might be triggering. And I've had women that have left because they were uncomfortable with it and didn't feel comfortable saying no in the middle of it and stepped away. Perfect. Hurrah. Yahoo. I love it. A very evolved person as far as I'm concerned. But the people that talk behind your back and basically are indirect and then create a story that may not even be true shouldn't be allowed to do so. And this is what I'm searching for in communities, a community space where if somebody wants to make a claim about your low vibration or you're bad or you're hurting people or whatever, you're going to be held accountable to that. You will sit in a space where somebody oversees the sharing of that information, and that person will be given the opportunity to respond. And then it will hold them in accountability. Well, you're actually right. You did say, does this resonate in your heart? But it didn't resonate in my heart. Did you say no? No, I didn't. Well, why didn't you do that? Is that Paul's fault or is that your fault? And I'm finding this over and over and over again. I do really deep work with people, and they will blame me to get out of self-responsibility and then make it my fault. I had a cousin that I did some very deep work with, and she basically abandoned me, and I had a car accident the day after I went and saw her, and she abandoned me because she talked to someone that was also traumatized, and that woman could not align with it and said I did something to her. So I sat with her afterwards, now finally well over a year later, and said, what the hell's going on? And why did this happen? Well, this friend said this and I felt really uncomfortable. Well, did I harm you? Did I coerce you? No. Well, what are you believing? Well, it's shameful. And it's like, no, you had a deeply healing experience. And did I give you pleasure in the experience? Because this was something deep. And she said yes, and she enjoyed it, but it aligned with her perpetrator's enjoyment and whatever from her past, which isn't mine at all. But I take people close to these edges, and I expect some self-responsibility, some accountability of the people involved, and come back and talk to me. Say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, or I judged you in this way. She's now stated it finally a couple years later, and it's taken some of the stress off. But once again, I had to be direct. I had to say, why did you do this? And what happened? And, oh, it's all me, and I wasn't ready, and I apologize, and all this kind of stuff. I'm not even sure she said I apologize, but that was her intention of saying that she'd fucked up, is the actual word she said. And I honor that, but without self-responsibility, life is going to trigger the fuck out of you, and you're always going to be a victim to it unless you own it and say, okay, yeah, something intense is happening, and then talk to the person involved, or find someone that's safe, that's already done this work, and go talk to them. Don't go talk to the fucking person that's just as traumatized as you or worse, and then expect them to see a new perspective, because they're terrified about the experience. They know it would heal them and make a change, but they're not ready to do that work, so they're going to shame it in you, so you don't do that work, and you harm all the people that are capable of it. And I've had that happen more times than I can count now, and it's not okay. And I'm in the process of holding people self-responsible and accountable in everything, and this directness thing is not fun, or not easy, not joyful. It doesn't give people like a bubbly feeling, but in the end, I'm sure she's a lot happier now that it's in the light, and she can talk to me, because she was phoning me for IT support and all these other things, but at the same time I had this underground belief or whatever, and I wasn't sure I wanted to give her support anymore if she couldn't be honest with me. So once again, directness, clearing up old stuff, directness with my girlfriend, directness with this community leader, directness with another community leader about sacred sexuality circles, all really intense discussions spoken in a very clear and forthright way, talking about a topic that is uncomfortable, not to harm, but to improve, to show the shadows, to get their shadows out and make sure those shadows don't come and fucking leap on me later. And that's what directness will get you. It's ugh at the time, but afterwards you'll be like, fuck, I've said it. I'm no longer going to be in fear. And now it's out in the open. And that's going to give you a gift like you would never imagine. So if you carried through this whole thing with me, I hope it's a gift to you, because it's my learned experience of how difficult it is and my part in my own creation and all this craziness. But I see it. I moved through it. Even though it hurt and stung and felt really uncomfortable, I feel better for it. This is the work. This is the shadow work. This is the depth. This is the thing that will set you free. I love you. I thank you. And consider this for yourself. Have a good day.